Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, which is an amazing interview where Dr. Jen Schwanke hosts our guest, Principal Baruti Kafele. You're going to be so inspired by their conversation. Every time I've been in a room with Dr. Kafele, I have left a better person, and you're going to feel the same way from today's conversation. As this interview is coming out in July 2024, I do want to say a couple of things. First of all, I hope that you are enjoying your summer for those of you in the US and Canadian listeners. For those of you on the other side of the globe, I hope you're enjoying the season that you have in your side of the world. Some of you listen to episodes that are archived, but for those of you that are listening to this at the time of its release, happy Independence Day for my US listeners as we celebrate the birthday of our nation. But I do want to say a couple of things here as listeners to this podcast. 1 year ago, July 2023, is when I launched Principal Matters LLC as a full-time venture. I'd been doing this as a part-time gig for a long time, but this past year has just been tremendous. The number of principals, educators, schools I've been able to work with through Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, in-person events, keynotes has been more overwhelming than I ever expected. And even as I step into next school year, 24-25, my calendar is filling up. So if you would like to connect, please reach out so we could find the time to collaborate, because I want to be able to connect you with my work. Or if I'm not available, with my Principal Matters Associate, I have a link on my website, williamdparker.com. Go to speakers and you'll see a whole list of friends there who also just present amazing content. So please reach out. You can reach me at my email address at will@williamdparker.com or through the website if you'd like to connect there as well. As we step into this conversation, I just want to encourage you to listen for not only just the amazing feedback and content that Principal Kafele provides to educators across the U.S., but also listen for your story and his, because I think all of us can relate to the commitment that he has, the dedication he has, but also his commitment to his own self-care so that he can continue to take care of other people too. But without further ado, would you enjoy this week's podcast episode, Principal Matters podcast episode 403.
Welcome, Principal Matters listeners. We are here today with a really special guest. Principal Kafele is how he is known to many, many educators across the country and around the world. And how long have we known each other, Principal Kafele? I think we met in 2016. Maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I had just published my first book from ASCD, and ASCD pulled us all together for an author's retreat, and it was super fun. You and I really connected and had a great time during that trip. And so since then, I've considered you a colleague and a friend, even though our paths don't physically cross a lot. I keep track of you, and I know you are all over the place, inspiring and educating and helping our educators. So I'm going to let you do the introduction. Tell our audience about yourself, your journey, and what brought you to what you're doing today.
Yeah, and good afternoon or morning, whatever time this is being broadcasted or podcasted, and good to be here with you. My journey starts in elementary school teaching, Brooklyn, New York City. Fell in love with it, so stayed in it. Came on back home because I'm not a New Yorker. I'm a New Jerseyite, so came on back home to Jersey and resumed. And that's the short version, but resumed teaching. I think it was my 4th year in East Orange, New Jersey. They named me as the Teacher of the Year for the building, the district, the county, and finalist New Jersey State. And did it a little bit longer, and then went on and became an administrator, assistant principal for a year, and then a principal. Did that for 14 years. But I was speaking and writing during that whole time. Wrote my first book before I started teaching in Jersey for parents, and just kept writing. And here we are doing the work I do now as a national, international presenter. and author of 14 books.
Okay, I want to go back though, because one of the most touching and impactful stories I've heard you tell, maybe just to me, now you can tell thousands of people. Tell us about your first book. You sold it out of the back of your car, didn't you?
Yeah. I was Mr. Mom at that time. We were newlyweds. My wife would go to work and I'd be home with an infant. And my heroes, my superheroes were all authors and speakers, leaders, activists, that type of thing. So I said, well, they inspire me. Let me do what they do and write a book. I had no computer yet. Most people didn't have a computer yet. This was in 1990. So I didn't have my first PC. So I wrote it in a notepad, which I still have in the basement, and wasn't even thinking about the publishing part until I finished. And now, like, where do we go? So I found somebody that taught me how to self-publish and got it. We printed with a print shop first, sold those books quick, and all the people that lent me money to print those books, I was able to pay them back. And then I was working on profit. So every day I'm getting up in the morning and I'm either shipping books to various different places, or as you said, it's got a case or two, a carton or two in the trunk, and going to New York and selling to book vendors and people. And that's what I was doing for 2 years. And then ultimately that book became the Essence magazine. That's a Black women's magazine, #1 bestseller, nonfiction, an unknown author, but someone who hustled and grinded for a long time, chasing a dream. And here I am living in that dream right now.
And tell us the title of that book because it makes my heart
Yeah.
happy every time I hear that title.
Yeah. A Black Parent's Handbook to Educating Your Children, in parentheses, outside of the classroom. So figure the parents, the children I worked with in Brooklyn that year, they were 100% Black. The children I worked with in East Orange, New Jersey, they were 100% Black. And I saw some areas where I could be of assistance to parents. So I went on and wrote that book to fill that void, that gap. It was a 74-page book, very thin, but I think very powerful. And I know now more than I knew then how powerful it was because of the volume of parents who have told me that they raise their children on or off of that 74-page book. So it meant a lot to a lot of people, and it got into the hands of a lot of people because we sold about, I would say, about 60,000 of those books. Yeah, we sold a lot. We were doing print runs of 6,000 copies with a book manufacturer, just over and over and over. And yeah, we sold about 60,000 of them.
And that's a lot of books. And
That's a
what
lot of
that
books.
tells me is the audience was there waiting for their author. Their
Yeah,
audience was there waiting for their leader. And I think I'm not making too big of a jump here when I say that's exactly what's happening to you now. So many leaders buy your books and they learn about school leadership, but I also think they learn about heart and energy and fire. You talk about being on fire,
yeah,
and so now I know you crisscross the country. I know sometimes you do 2 sessions or trainings or keynotes a day.
yeah.
So what I think this is leading to a question. What I think is so neat about your work is you are not just the teacher and principal who will help people understand Black children. You resonate with white women, with Latino educators, with Black educators, certainly. So I love that your voice speaks to all of us and the things you have to say speak to all of us. So tell our listeners about that. Tell us about the nature of your work now and what it is that your message does to all of these hundreds of thousands of educators.
Yeah, well, let me give you even a backdrop to that. From 1986 until 2004, my audiences were 100% Black. But let me tell you why. That's all that was inviting me. Now it wasn't that I was speaking for money at all. These were 100% free. I wasn't really thinking money at that time. It's just something I was doing on the side. because I was teaching and then I was leading. But I'm speaking whenever I can, a PTA meeting, a PTO, a banquet, a graduation, wherever somebody would have me, because I'm trying to develop a skill. But I had never experienced speaking to audiences outside of urban African American audiences. So I sent a proposal to ASCD in 2003, which was accepted for the 2004 annual conference. So for the first time, I had an audience that was where black attendees were in the minority. It was predominantly white audience. They gave me a 300-seat room for my first time ever doing a breakout session in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was standing room only, and they turned away hundreds. It was an incredible day. That was my breakthrough, and from that point on, now I'm speaking to just multiple different races, ethnicities of people. So now with my own brand, I needed the world to know that I was more than just someone who could speak to black people on black issues. I wanted the world to know that I can speak with anybody.
Right.
So I wrote a book. The first book was called Motivating Black, first for ASCD was Motivating Black Males to Achieve in School and in Life. But I needed folks to know that I wasn't just confined to speaking on black males. So
Exactly.
I wrote Closing the Attitude Gap. And that's the book that took me into other audiences, and to be able to show my own talent, my own skill set, that I can speak to a lot of topics. And I've been on that trajectory ever since that second book, which I wrote in 2013. So yeah, so here we are in
Yeah.
2024, and I speak anywhere.
Right. And I know you do some of your books are for principals, although as you and I both know, are the voice that we use could be for any educator, for
Yeah,
any leader, for any aspiring leader. And then you dipped your toe in the assistant principal world, and that seemed
yeah.
to really resonate. And so you've done podcasting, you've written books about that. Tell us how you thought, wait, these assistant principals aren't getting any light. How did you come to that?
Yeah, because to this day, I'm haunted by my year as an assistant principal. Like it still bugs me,
Right.
that experience. It's probably the worst experience I had in my 21 years of public education, because I went from being this teacher of the year to a year later this full-time disciplinarian, this bus duty person, this cafeteria duty person, this inventory clerk. And I'm like, wait a minute, I had a lot of skill, a lot of talent that is not being utilized. So that stayed with me in my principal years and beyond. So I said, now I'm looking at it through a different lens as a full-time presenter. And I'm saying these folks are doing the same thing I did. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush and say all of them, because it's not all of them. The ones that have the principle that understands how to utilize them, then they're fine. But they tend to be a minority in terms of my travels. So I'm saying that needs to be addressed. And I noticed that, I kind of looked on the internet looking to see what kind of resources are out there. And I noticed there wasn't really a lot of books out there that speak to the AP. The books that speak to the AP are for the principal. They're for someone who's in a position that they'll be in one day, perhaps, but right now in real time, that's not what they do. So I said, let me write the book that says AP. But before I wrote it, I wrote a blog post. And that was the one that set me off. It was called the assistant principalship, the most misunderstood and underutilized position in all of education. I've written a zillion blogs in my lifetime. That's the one that went viral. So I said, okay, this resonated with people. This little 800-word essay that I wrote resonated with a lot of people. Let me take this essay and turn it into a book. So the skeleton is written, the template is written. Let me write the book. So I write the book, and the Assistant Principal 50, and that became the biggest selling book that I ever wrote. And but it wasn't about the book sales. It was just about the content, the material, the resource. So went on and created which was once called the Virtual AP Leadership Academy, which evolved into the AP and New Principals Academy. And that almost happened simultaneously. So as the AP 50 came out, now here comes the Academy the same month, right? May of 2020. So then just stayed on that trajectory. Had written a book prior to called The Aspiring Principal 50, but that really wasn't about the assistant principalship. It was about someone aspiring to come into administration. So then from there, wrote the one called The Assistant Principal Identity, protecting your leadership, authenticity, fervor, mindset, authenticity, and fervor. And and here I am. I wrote another one, The Assistant
Right.
Principal Impact, but I've been sitting on it. It's literally sitting in this computer. I wrote it a year ago, and we'll put it out at some point.
Right. Well, I
Yeah,
think it's the reason that I love that that's a road you took is I too spent 5 years as an assistant. And I think I told you this before. I was privileged enough to be on your podcast once to talk to your assistant principal audience. And I think I said at the time, I spent 5 years as an assistant. And the first one, the principal said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You're going to do special ed and discipline. Call me if you need me, but you won't." And that's what it was. It was a vacuum. I was not only the bad guy to everyone, but I had to make decisions that had profound impact on people, and I didn't feel like I got the respect or the validation or even the training that I needed. And you know better than anyone, you can't ask for respect. It has to be earned. But that role is not often respected, even though
yeah,
those are the people grinding and grinding and grinding. And so my sense is that this was such a need. All those assistant principals out there that aren't feeling seen and aren't having people say, wow, we couldn't do this without you. I think to validate that role with books and with conversations and with a podcast was something that probably made a lot of people feel the power that they had in their role.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. As a school leader, you have a vision of a thriving, supportive educational environment where every teacher and student can succeed. With DigiCoach, you can turn that vision into reality. Imagine walking into a classroom with DigiCoach on your mobile device. Its customizable look-fors and pre-written feedback statements streamline your feedback process, saving you precious time. You're not just observing, you're actively supporting your teachers while generating data to drive instructional change. With the new coaching plan feature, you can effortlessly document action plans and coaching conversations. This ensures every teacher is supported and you can track their progress related to your campus goals. DigiCoach empowers you to customize the platform to fit your specific needs, reinforcing your vision at every step. And when you need support, the DigiCoach team becomes your team, with consulting efforts focused on realizing your organization's goals. By using DigiCoach, you lead your school to remarkable progress. Ready to turn your vision into reality? Visit digicoach.com and tell them that Will Parker sent you. Everyone talks about the power of data-driven instruction, but what does that actually look like? Look no further than IXL, the ultimate online learning and teaching platform for K-12. IXL gives you meaningful insights that drive real progress, and research can prove it. Studies in nearly all 50 states show that schools that use IXL outperform other schools on state tests. Educators who use IXL love that they can easily see how their school is performing in real time to make better instructional decisions. And IXL doesn't stop at just data. IXL also brings an entire ecosystem of resources for your teachers with a complete curriculum, personalized learning plans, and so much more. It's no wonder that IXL is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts. Ready to join them? Visit IXL.com/PM to get started.
So, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about. What resonates most with your readers? And then my next question is going to be what resonates most with your audiences. So you can fold those things together if you'd like.
yeah, is assistant principal readers or just in general?
Oh, in general.
Yeah, I tend to talk about, in terms of my leadership audiences, I tend to talk about instructional leadership across the board, not just with the AP, but with the principal, with central office, with the aspiring leader. That's sort of my go-to, my core. My next book
Mm-hmm.
So that tends to resonate with folks. Also, just any conversation around attitude.
Right.
I know that resonates with a lot of my folks, whether it be my readers or people that listen, because I believe in the power of attitude, the power of positive thinking. It's old cliche, but I just strongly believe in it. It moves
Right.
mountains.
Right.
Yeah,
So I feel a little bit like I'm cheating because I know a few things about you that lead to conversations I want to have. One of them is a very powerful story you told me once when I said, "Oh my goodness, how do you do this? How do you travel? How do you stay sharp?" And you told me a pretty impactful story about your health and a moment
yeah,
of change. Why don't you tell our listeners about that and how it drives you now?
yeah. I being on the road as often as I am and as I was at that time period, you tend to take your body for granted unless you're disciplined that way, whether it be what you eat or your exercise. So I took it for granted. I looked at myself as a machine,
Hmm.
and thought that those kinds of things, those health issues such as a heart attack, those things happen to other people, so that I don't have to be concerned about that. I don't need that on my radar. So I was in Miami May 1st, 2015, getting ready to do a keynote and then fly back and make a wedding the next day with a family member. And that wedding trip didn't happen because on that stage I had a heart attack. Main artery was clogged 100%. So the translation to that is my diet. My artery was clogged with plaque. So that was just a grease buildup of all the junk that I was eating, salt, grease, everything that I was eating over the years. And it accumulated until that main artery just blood couldn't flow through it. So they got a stent in it. As far as this, just to give you the full picture, I'm on the stage. I finished the speech because of my determination, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. So had I known it was a heart attack, I probably would have stopped, but I didn't know. Yeah, so I fought through it. A lot of pain, excruciating pain, weakness, fatigue, sweat, blurred vision, stumbling in my stepping on stage, and but finished, and even took about two questions until that third question. I knew I was in trouble, so I had to bring it to a stop. And there was some kind of medical practitioner in the audience, and he was able to diagnose that I was in the midst of a heart attack. So they rushed me to the hospital
Wow.
and performed surgery, got the stent in there, informed me I was type 2 diabetic now, and which came with the heart attack. And here I am. So I had to make some lifestyle changes just in terms of diet, exercise, putting in all these miles. And here I am, much lighter. I weigh about 230. At the time of the heart attack, I was approaching 260. And but I'm good now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen, listeners, he's all, yeah, I made some changes. I think you get up in hotels and you
Yeah.
find that treadmill at 4:30 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
pound it out, right? It's
Crazy hours, late at night, early morning. Um, you're tired, you don't feel like doing it, put in, so you may not do a whole 45-minute workout, but you put in about 20 minutes, 25, 30, and just to get it in, you know.
Well, and here's why I think that story's powerful. Many of your audience members and your readers are not on the road 200 days a year or
Mhm.
however many it is, probably even higher than that now. But what they are doing is running schools where they don't stop to have a decent meal or they shove
Yeah.
down some chicken nuggets because that's what's left over in the cafeteria or they eat late at night tired. And so your overall message of, I thought my body was a machine, but then I realized it wasn't. And so actually, because of me, became a machine again.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's what our school leaders need to know is that self-care. If you're not doing that, it might not be a heart attack on a stage doing a keynote, but it could be a heart attack, at right before a music assembly or as you
Yeah.
try to run a staff meeting. It's a very real thing, and I think the fact that you experienced it and you could have said, well, goodness, I'm not very healthy and stayed home the rest of your life. But
Yeah.
instead you said, well, I'm going to make some changes.
Made some changes. Went home, stayed home for, I think it was 13 days. No, it was 13 from the heart attack. So I think I was home for 9 days. That's what it was. And got back out on the road. And being on the road was my therapy.
Yeah,
My body didn't have to so much adapt to what happened. It had to adapt to the medication.
sure.
I was feeling just feeling strange, and as I became adapted to the medication, then I started feeling better. But the weight was falling off at a pace that I just didn't quite understand. Like the clothes were fitting so big, and I didn't know why at first. I said, "Oh, wait a minute, this diet and this treadmill." That's what's going on. And this was the summer months, so I didn't have time to change. My schedule was full. I had like 85 presentations between the heart attack of May 1st and August 31st. And I did them all, and except one. And, so I didn't have time to buy clothes. So by the time we got to August, my intro to my audiences was, please excuse the way my clothes are fitting me. But I had a heart attack. Everybody, that type of thing. I said, no, I'm good though.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a good cautionary tale, though. And by the way, listeners, when he told me this story that summer of or fall of 2016, I said, "My goodness, what about your wife?" And you said, "Oh, this is so sweet." You said, "She is my queen,
Yeah.
and I need to work toward this for her too."
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
she still is, I'm quite sure. She's
Yeah,
a
still is. She's sitting right here. Yeah,
Oh, well,
still
there
is.
you go. You tell her you were sending her love letters even back then when I met you.
Yeah,
So what are some challenges? Just a few more questions for you. What are some challenges that you see principals facing as you travel the country and travel the world? I'm sure there's some common threads
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
seeing.
The biggest common thread is post-pandemic. Um, the children are different, and everybody's saying it. And one of the things that I think we failed, as I always say, when they got back, we dove right into instruction. Not me, because I was on the consulting side, but I got to see it. But schools, districts, they dove right back into math, science, language arts, and social studies as if nothing happened. They were trying to catch up. And those students, it's comparable. One of my buddies, Dr. Marcus Jackson, he talks about the difference between being in game shape and school shape. So in the world of sports, after the season, the ones who are really dedicated to their sport, to their craft, to their profession, they're going to train, condition, weight train, everything throughout the course of the off season, so that when the season comes around, they're ready to go. Right? They'll get into game shape as the games begin, because nothing will get you into game shape better than playing in a game. But in terms of being prepared for games, they're ready. Right? They're
Mhm.
coming in ready. Well, they do that to risk the to minimize the risk of injury, of fatigue, of cramping, etc. Well, in the world of education, we wanted to make sure this we should have made sure that students came back to school in school shape, meaning that when they got back, instead of diving so hard into the game, that we got them conditioned for school again. And a lot of that conditioning would have been SEL, social emotional learning, because in many states they were away 2 years and learning was happening through this medium right
Mhm.
here, a computer. And many of those cameras were off, meaning many of them kids probably weren't even in the same room. It's just that their name was on the screen. So coming back into a school facility and being with young people, being with peers again, and teachers giving you instruction and direction and guidance and so forth. Folks weren't used to that. And that spilled right into the next year and the next year. And now folks still have the same complaints and criticisms about what they're seeing in the school. But I'm saying to them, there's certain things in our lives, certain things in our work that we try to get better, but then there are other things in our lives and other things in our work that we have to pivot away from. So in this case, I'm saying some of those practices that work with that kid from 2019 and back may not necessarily be as effective or effective at all in 2024, because this is a different youngster, and it will probably be a different youngster until that pre-K kid is gone from high school. Um, the world shifted, and we have to make sure that that what we do is consistent with where the world is right now versus where the world was back then. But that's not the only entity that shifted. A lot of the younger teachers have shifted. I'm in rooms with younger teachers, and just being in the rooms with them, things I see, things I hear, things I experience, I say this is not the same teacher. But I don't have to confine that to the pandemic. I left my principalship in 2011. And when I look at the new teacher that I was bringing in 2011 and the new teachers I was seeing, because I was speaking nationally by then, and versus the new teacher I see now, this is a different new teacher. When I see new teachers in these auditoriums or these cafeterias or wherever, whatever kind of rooms I'm speaking in, I'm like, oh, this is a different teacher from what I used to see 13 years ago in 2011. So the question is, how are we adapting to the new teacher? Let me be a little bit more specific. No way in the world in 2000, because I want to be concrete with this point. No way in the world in 2005, when I'm using five because that's when I became a high school principal. So from 5 to 11, that was my high school principal stint. I've never interviewed a teacher with visible tattoos, just to use that as an example. I've never seen it before. Now, it's commonplace that a candidate could walk into an office, the whole forearms are filled up, and the neck, maybe some on the face, right? And it's probably not a big deal. But had you walked into my office back in those days like that, I probably would have judged you and said, nah, I don't think this is what I want on my staff. The world has shifted now. So I can't look at tattoos and make a judgment or a determination as to what your skill set would be in a classroom. It's a different world, right? And it's not just it's there's a lot of things. And if we haven't adapted to the times in terms of who's walking into that classroom now, then we're probably going to have a lot of the problems that so many of us are facing right now. I'm just using the tattoo as one example. There's so many others.
Well, it's such a good example because you and I are both in multiple Facebook groups of principals
Hmm.
that also have many teachers. And you want to get a controversy started, you can post, what do you think about teachers with tattoos? Or what do you think about teachers who wear blue jeans? Or what do you think about teachers who have a side hustle? Or name the question.
Yeah,
And you will get hundreds of responses. And what I think you'll agree with me, I see two threads. I see one where people are saying it's ridiculous, this is not acceptable, it's unprofessional. And then the second thread is, hey, they're here.
they're here.
They want to teach. What are we going to do about this? And
Hmm.
so I'm with you. I feel like it's not about judgment at all because you can't out of one side of your mouth say, "Oh my goodness, there's a teacher shortage. What are we going to do?" And then out of the other side of your mouth say, "But I can't. I have made a judgment about a certain type of teacher that I would not want in my school." We can't do that. And
Yeah,
so I'm glad that to hear you say, "Hey, we have to adapt. It
yeah,
is different." Acknowledged.
that's
Move
right.
on.
That's right.
My
That's
son's,
right.
football coach has a wonderful saying, "So what, now what?"
Hmm.
And that's
Oh,
that's
now
the way
what?
I look at it, you know?
Yeah,
We can't complain about a problem if we're not willing to say, "Okay, it's actually not a problem. We just kinda have to move forward."
yeah. The world changed. It
The world
shifted.
changed,
A lot happened in 2020.
right?
Whether it be social justice issues, whether it be the pandemic itself, um, it shifted, and it had implications for what happens in schools and classrooms.
Right.
So we have to shift with it.
Can I tell you one of the things I like most about you?
What's that?
You're not angry. You're not anxious, apparently. It doesn't seem to be.
Mhm.
You don't take any of this as an indication that the sky is falling and the world is ending.
Right.
You appear very calm, very clinical and deliberate about a job that's full of heart. And so I know the heart and the soul are there, but you're also not going to attack these changes with outrage. And I've talked before in presentations, we have a world where it's a culture of outrage. The pandemic, the social issues, the divisions, the political swamp we're in, all of that could make you a very jaded man.
Yeah.
But I think you wake up every day and you say you're on fire, and then you go and talk to people and encourage them to get off the outrage ledge and get on the solving problem ledge. So that's what I love most about you. And I should give you a chance to respond to that if you'd like.
Yeah, no, that goes back to everything I said about attitude.
Right.
I'm going to be able to control who I am. I say to people all the time that the ideal life is to be able to live it on your own terms. And the world is the world, but I'm going to be me within that world in terms of my attitude. The world is not going to bring me down. Will I have days that I'm not as up as the other? Yeah, we're all human. But I'm going to make sure that that if I don't have control over anything else in life, that I got control over my attitude. I got in the translation, control over the way I feel about my day,
Right.
about myself, about my circumstances. I have to control that. I have to be able to influence that, and not the world controlling it for me or influencing it for me. I got to have control over that, if nothing else.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Okay, usually my last question is, how do our listeners find you? And I do know that you have enough clicks on your website that if I were to Google you, your website is right there. But go ahead and indulge us all and tell us how our listeners could find you if they wanted to read or book you or whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Principalkafele.com, principalkafele.com, Kafele.
Right.
And you'll find all my contact information there, all my social media. But the one I just want to draw your attention to is the YouTube channel, AP and New Principals Academy, formerly Virtual AP Leadership Academy. So many people got hired to become principals as a result of being just family of the Virtual AP Leadership Academy. I had to rebrand it to AP and New Principals Academy so that the new principals didn't leave us.
Right.
I said to them, I said, you need this more than you did as an AP, because now you by yourself. Yeah,
Right.
you got people on the team with you, but at the end of the day, you're the only one in the building that's got this title called principal. No one
Right.
else has that. Teachers
Right.
have each other. If you got more than one AP, they got each other. You got custodians, they got each other. But that principal, you got nobody. You got people in other buildings, but they're not in there with you. So you need this more than you ever needed it. So the AP and New Principals Academy coupled with principalkafele.com.
That's excellent. Okay, listeners, please do find him. He's an amazing man. And as you can tell, a very calming presence. And right before we started recording, I told him how much I love his radio voice too. Very calming voice that makes everyone feel that it's going to be okay.
Appreciate that.
So thank you, listeners. And thank you so much to Principal Kafele for giving us a half an hour of your time. It has been a true pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
You'll find free resources like this one at williamdparker.com. Subscribe for our free weekly newsletter, which contains bonus material, and also check out the links for Grow Academies, Masterminds, Executive Coaching, and Keynote presentations from my books, as well as from Principal Matters Associates. You can find out more under our speakers tab at williamdparker.com. Thank you for learning together, and thank you for doing what matters.